What is so exciting about being here at the C40 World Mayors Summit in Copenhagen with a gathering of over 70 mayors and city leaders doing exactly that. But we cannot solve the problem alone. Nation states have a huge role to play. Just 2 weeks ago, the UN Secretary General used his convening power to call together the nations of the world at his Climate Action Summit. And it's clear to see through that summit and other international conferences that intergovernmental action is being blocked by a minority of very powerful science-denying governments representing the interests of the fossil fuel industry. So what happens as a mayor when your president or prime minister doesn't recognize the science and is holding back progress? Today we gather 4 mayors of C40 cities who know all too well the challenges of working hard to implement solutions to the climate crisis when their national leaders are doing the exact opposite. These mayors are showing how it's possible to pursue the science-based climate action the world needs, even when national governments are not supportive. They are the Mayor of New Orleans, Latoya Cantrell, who's here. Mayor, welcome. The Mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is beside me here. Mayor, welcome. The mayor will speak in English, but when we get to questions, they will be translated through Turkish. The President of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, at the end. Thank you so much, Mayor, for being here. And the Mayor of Boston, Martin J. Walsh, to my left. And I'd now like to hand over the microphone to Mayor Walsh for his comments. Mayor?
Thank you very much, David. Let's see if this thing's on. Here we go. There we go. Thank you for having us today. It's exciting to be here. I want to thank the Mayor of Copenhagen for hosting us in this beautiful city. We had a chance to walk around the city yesterday and see an incredible, beautiful waterfront here. It's time for cities to lead now. And in the United States of America, it's, in some ways, I guess I can't say shocking anymore, but it's shocking that the president and our national government is not focused in the area of climate preparedness, climate resiliency, particularly after the events of, during his presidency, the amount of times that FEMA has had to go into a city to give money to repair the damages of the different storms that we've had. But it is time, there's a unique opportunity here in the United States of America for cities to lead, and what we're doing in Boston is doing that exactly. We're working to make sure that we're planning for the eventual growth and build out of a 47-mile sea line protection for sea level rise in Boston. In this year's budget, we put 10% of our capital spending towards climate resiliency and climate programming. We're working yesterday we released a plan in Boston to build all of our buildings to be carbon free, the new buildings in the city of Boston. And we can't wait as a city, or we can't wait as a country for the national government to act in the United States of America. We're proud of the work that all of us American mayors are doing collectively through the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Climate Mayors. We're working with Eric Garcetti from Los Angeles, who will hear at this conference on the work that we're doing. But it's not a time for us to sit back and wait for our national government to move forward. Ultimately, the work has to be done on a local level regardless of the national government anyway, and that's something that we're proud of. Climate change is the defining moment of our time. We need to work with each other, and the United States also can't work within our borders. We need to continue to work with the great cities around the world to continue to advance forward. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to do this for our youth. We need to do this for the sustainability of our cities. We have to do this for the sustainability of our country, and we have to do this for the sustainability of our world if we want to continue to move forward. So I look forward to the conversation. I want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to thank the 70 cities represented here by your mayors, and I also want to thank the hundreds of other cities represented by different folks that are here today. So thank you. Thanks, David.
Thanks very much, Mayor Walsh, for your comments and for Boston's extraordinary leadership, particularly on climate resilience and adapting to the change that is already happening. I'd like to ask for her comments now, Mayor Latoya Cantrell, the Mayor of New Orleans.
Thank you, and good morning, Mayor Is it on now? Yep, I think so. Well, good morning. It really is an honor to be here as we embrace and address this issue of climate change head on. We really don't have a choice because things are absolutely changing before our eyes. In the city of New Orleans, particularly like this summer, we had two 100-year storms within less than 2 months apart. So previously, where we may have gotten 0.3 inches of rain in 37 days, we saw over 8 inches of rain in 90 minutes. And so we can no longer absolutely just turn our back because, again, we're living with it. Even during the same time, we saw the Mississippi River at a 200-year high. At the same time, during hurricane season, which begins every year, June 1, we have seen subsidence, of course, in the city. In terms of as the sea level is rising, we're also sinking. We are losing a football field every 100 minutes. The Gulf of Mexico is now at our front door. So we are taking this again head on. Infrastructure is something that we have to invest in. We know that it's not only protecting property, it's protecting lives. The city of New Orleans has been one of the first in the world to produce and move forward a resiliency plan. Just last week, we unveiled our climate plan to move forward. We have reduced in regards to greenhouse gas emissions. We know that that is absolutely the top priority of reducing those emissions. We have 75% now of our utility. For example, our lights are now LED. And so we are taking this, again, very seriously, knowing that water has no boundaries in our city. So while we're seeing flood waters rise in ways that we have never before, we have also seen our neighboring cities. Just a couple of weeks ago, like Houston, for example, had 42 inches of rain in 24 hours. And so again, the southern cities are taking it very much hard in the United States of America. And so being a part of C40, just it makes this a true priority, not just for New Orleans, not just for the United States of America, but for the world. And that's why I see the strength in our partnership and with the national government that doesn't want to believe science for some reason, and even faced with the state government that doesn't want to embrace it as well. So the challenges are real, but working together, I know that we can make a difference in our world and in our city and in our country.
Thank you very much, Mayor Cantrell, for your comments and action. And I think everyone in this room understands the story of New Orleans and the resilience it is showing and needs to show. I'd like to ask next for his comments the President of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski. President Trzaskowski, you have the floor.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here. Well, like everywhere in Europe, floods, droughts, winds of tornado size and dimension. That's what happens in my country as well. And the conservative Polish government is doing nothing. They are being the most difficult member of the European Union when it comes to decisions on climate change. And yes, the objective situation is difficult because we weren't working on the energy mix in the past 3 years to change our energy mix. We are heavily dependent on coal. But my government, I was Minister of European Affairs, we showed that we could be quite constructive, that we could work together on climate change in the previous years. But now we have those guys who do not take it seriously. So obviously it is for us, for the cities, and Warsaw is one of the biggest cities in the region, to step up and take the responsibility and to lead. One thing has to be said, that the young people are so much galvanized. They are political, not party political, but political on the issue. And if you want to walk the streets of some of the bigger cities in Poland, you better do something about climate change. What we are doing, I mean, that was one of the most important pledges of my campaign. We're pushing hard to green our transport. We just took some decisions to actually develop the metro line and the underground network. We just purchased 130 electric buses, one of the biggest tenders in Europe, and we're saying from today on, we are not going to buy fuel buses, but we are going to buy electric and no emission buses. We also have launched a vast program of tree planting, and our ambition is to have 1 million trees planted till 2023. We also took measures to tackle smog in the city, which will help cutting carbon emissions. Investing in clean heating options. We do subsidies for renewables on a city level, and we are trying to get rid of the coal furnaces in a city. So we are taking our share of responsibility. We think that it is for us, for the cities, to lead, especially in a situation where our governments are being obstreperous and doing absolutely nothing, or actually are blocking change within the European Union and within the world. That's why we think that this challenge has to be, taken by us, and we have to be at the forefront of the fight for climate and for clean air in our cities.
Thank you very much for those comments and for that impressive list of actions. I think we'll get some questions on that when we get to the questions from the media. I'd now like to ask our fourth speaker, the Mayor of Istanbul, my colleague, Mayor. You have the floor for your comments.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me here in Copenhagen. And nice to see you all here. Thank you very much. And I bring my message, the big message, the clear message of people in Istanbul, from Istanbul, about democracy. Because we have very clear message in 2019 elections, and we try to carry these messages to the future. So we started work about how Istanbul will be in 2050 in the world. So the vision is important, and the most important things as a vision of Istanbul, Istanbul will be a just, green and a creative city as a vision of 2050. And we develop new policies and action plans for all. This is very important for our city because we know that we have to know our way of how we go to the future. Now we have 16 million population in our city, and we know that we will invest for new technologies to have low carbon emissions in Istanbul, and we will invite all our citizens to take initiative of this process, and also we will support the clean energy companies and technologies against global warming. This is very important for us also. And we try to make Istanbul as a green city. This is very important part of our politics. We will increase green areas 10 square meter per person in Istanbul. New parks in 5 years, we organized 30 million square meters in 5 years in Istanbul, and we need that. And we are ready to collaborate with C40 cities, learn from their experiences and work together. So why we are here. And I want to say that especially how we organize this without government, because we believe our citizens, Istanbulites, this is a very important thing. We are going to make awareness campaigns on climate change with our citizens. Istanbul will be leading city on this issue in Turkey and around. We have to achieve this. And especially we will work for this organization, of course, some international firms, sectors, and we invite them in our city and work together. Finally, I want to say this, our most important thing is our citizens of Istanbul, because especially our campaign to work together, take awareness of their climate, how climate will go on, how city and how we can organize as a green city of Istanbul. We work on with our citizens, and then we see how government behave about this. But we work together with 16 million people of Istanbul.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you for your active participation in C40. We now have a few minutes for questions. If you could name who you wish to direct the question to, but I will give all of the mayors on stage an opportunity to address the question. And for the Mayor of Istanbul, the questions will be translated through Turkish. Any questions from the media? Yes, and sorry, could you identify yourself as well, if you wouldn't mind?
Hi, I'm Richard Orange, and I'm representing Guardian Cities. This is for Mayor Cantrell. It was interesting to hear that you said you'd had 200-day storms in 100-year storms in 2 months, was it? I mean, I'm wondering, when do you think that that kind of real-time effects of climate change are going to start affecting the political choices people make in your state, because it's still controlled by the Republicans, who, as you said, deny the science. So I wonder, do you see that that's starting to have a political impact?
My angle in dealing with it, particularly from the City of New Orleans standpoint, is that the City of New Orleans drives the economy of the state of Louisiana. And it is absolutely a destination city. So if toilets don't flush in New Orleans, then the cash registers can't ring in Baton Rouge, which is, of course, our state capital. So putting a real focus on infrastructure has been an angle. Being able to improve infrastructure in terms of collecting water, holding water, freeing it up from running right off into the drain. So we have about $145 million in green infrastructure improvements that are underway right now, where it would hold millions of gallons of water. But you cannot ignore the flooding, which is allowing us to kind of use it as an opportunity to speak to the real needs of the City of New Orleans and the overall impact to the state of Louisiana. And we've seen just bipartisan, literally, support from this, the latest legislative session that I was in, having to push for additional revenue from the state level that's actually generated in the City of New Orleans, but the majority of it, 70%, goes to the state, while the infrastructure needs are needed in New Orleans. So with that big push, we just saw bipartisan support and a shift that we had never seen before at the state level. And even when I was told no way that the City of New Orleans would get more of its tax revenue for infrastructure from the state of Louisiana, we were able to make those gains. But it was also because we started to see flooding at rates that we had never seen before.
So I'm going to generalize that question a touch, if I might, and just ask if the other mayors would have a comment. Are the extreme weather, at what point are the extreme weather events your cities are experiencing going to change, if at all, the national government's attitude on this? Does anybody else have, Mayor Walsh?
I think it's important to understand that, as we all know, climate is the issue of our time. We're seeing young people around the world rise up. We're seeing more people talk about what's happening. We have governments, national governments in the United States that doesn't believe in science. We have a president that thinks that, wants to convince people that talking about the environment is bad for our economy, which is completely opposite. It's important for us. I represent a city that's a seacoast town, Boston, Massachusetts, one of the oldest cities in America. We have 47 miles of coastline. We're dealing with sea level rise. Every year, we haven't had the 100-year storm yet, but we have had, well, I shouldn't say that. In 2015, we had 106 inches of snow in about 3.5 weeks. So if that were rain, because of the snow, we were a little better protected. But I think it's really important for us as cities, as mayors, who come from countries that the national government is ignoring it. We don't have the luxury to sit back and wait for national government to act. I think that we have to continue to work moving forward. As New Orleans has experienced over the last decade or so, much devastation because of sea level rise and because of these storms. We have to continue to move forward. We have to continue to convince our national leaders and people within the Republican Party, and quite honestly, some people within the Democratic Party in America, to take a real serious look at this issue. Young people are not going to stand by and wait for a mayor of a city or a legislator in the United States Congress to act. We had a demonstration in Boston where people thought 600 or 700 young people were going to show up. We had over 7,000 young people show up in City Hall Plaza in Boston from all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Those numbers are only going to grow. So I think it's really important that we take these issues real seriously. When President Trump decided to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, mayors around America, within a couple of weeks, there was 200 of us that signed on to stay connected to the Paris Accord. Since that time, the U.S. Climate Mayors was created. We have over 400 mayors right now that are part of that association across the United States of America. Some of us are Republicans, some of them are Republicans, some are Democrats, some come from the South, some come from the East, some come from the West, some come from the Midwest. So it's really important to understand that we're going to continue to push as mayors collectively in the United States of America to continue to make gains and continue to make climate and climate resiliency and climate change and everything associated with climate a top priority for the United States of America.
Just ask if Warsaw has a comment, and then we can go to another question.
Well, I mean, the situation in Poland is bizarre because the Prime Minister actually realizes how the issue resonates. So, and he has 4 channels of propaganda, which is churning out news all the time. So he now wants to be depicted as this incredibly green prime minister. So he pays lip service, to the question of fighting climate change. But obviously his government is doing nothing and is blocking all the measures within the European Union. So this is pretty strange. And of course some backbenchers are deniers, but I mean, he wants to be this new modern guy. But in reality, he does nothing. But I mean, the pressure, especially from the young people, is just enormous. And we have to do something about it because, with the floods almost every other year and with heat waves and so on, people do realize that this is one of the most important priorities. But the important thing with the young people is that they are fed up with declarations, with goals and priorities. Even when I tell them that we are planning to do things and we are doing, one thing at a time, they want to see results. So, I mean, the only way to become credible, even for someone who recognizes the fact and introduces certain measures and is very progressive for the Polish context, such as myself, you need simply to prove it with results. And if you don't, your credibility will not be there for the coming 2 or 3 years. And the important thing is that this is completely not party political. So I mean, this is a certain distrust for the establishment as such. So we need to do something for climate change, but also for the credibility of the political process.
Mayor?
I want to continue in Turkish. And
There will be simultaneous translation,
Yes.
if you wish, from the Turkish.
Öncelikle şunu ifade etmek isterim. Aslında benzer konulara değindik ve özellikle Türkiye'deki iklim değişiminin yarattığı travmayı biz hepimiz aynı dünyada olduğu gibi şehrimizde de yaşıyoruz. Bu bakış açısıyla baktığımızda bizim işimiz şehrin gerçek sorunlarını çözmek ve bu konudaki tedbirleri almak. Bu tedbirleri alırken bizim yüzümüz tamamen halka dönük olmalı ve halkla diyalog kurmalıyız. Örneğin bu konuda demokratik katılım çok önemli. Bu konuda tümüyle yeni dönem yönetim anlayışımızı tamamen halka yüzümüzü çevirerek yürütüyoruz ve milyonlarca insanın katılımını sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. Şu anda yeni stratejik planımızı yapıyoruz 5 yıllık ve tamamen bu stratejik planımızı vatandaşlarımızla üretiyoruz. Sadece tek bir oturumumuza 4000-5000 insan katılıyor ve beraber İstanbul'un geleceğini planlıyoruz. Yüz binlerce insanın oylamasıyla vatandaşların taleplerini alıyoruz ki tümüyle vatandaşlarımızın eğilimi, çocuklar, gençler, kadınlar yeni bir iklim sorunu yaşamamak adına şehrin yeşil bir kente dönüşmesi ve bu yeşil kent oluşması adına da hep birlikte bir aslında seferberlik yapmak. Bu duyguyla hareket ettiğiniz zaman kimse buna karşı gelemiyor ve gelemez. Biz demokratik katılımı çok önemsiyoruz. 16 milyonun sesinin gür çıktığı bir yerde bu bir parti politikasına ya da bir hükümetin çevireceği bir pozisyona asla dönemez. Biz buna inanıyoruz. Bu yolda da devam edeceğiz. Bu konuda şunu da söylemek isterim. Dünyayı bütün şehirler iyi bir dayanışmayla iyi bir yöne evirebilirler. Çünkü biz gerçek sorunlarla konuşuyor ve uğraşıyoruz. Onlara çözüm üretiyoruz. O bakımdan mümkün olduğu kadar halka açık bir demokratik süreci yönetip eğer hükümetin çok müdahaleci bir tavrı varsa iklime aykırı onu biraz bypass etmek bizim sorumluluğumuz altında olacak.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We have time for one more question. I'll take it here. Well, you know what? I'm going to take two at the same time. One from you and then one back here. If you could just identify yourself, and then we will see what we can do about the answers.
My question is to Mayor İmamoğlu, and maybe I can ask in Turkish.
Sure.
Yes, my name is Savaş Karakaplan, and I'm journalist for Nordic Life magazine. Sayın Başkan, demokrasiden söz ederek başladınız konuşmanıza ve az önce söz aldığınızda tekrar demokrasiyi vurgulayarak örnekler verdiniz. Bu kentlerin gelişiminde yaşanan sorunlarda görüyoruz ki medya tarafından zorluklarla karşılaşıyorsunuz. Gerçek dışı bilgiler sunuluyor izleyicilere. Bu konuda zorlandığınızı biliyoruz. Bununla nasıl baş edeceksiniz?
Aslında günümüzün teknolojisi ve haber alma yöntemleri bu işimizi, sorunumuzu kolaylaştırıyor çözüm adına. Yani İstanbul'dan bir örnek vermek isterim tabii ki değerli belediye başkanlarına. Biz tüm meclislerimizi ve büyük toplantılarımızı canlı yayınla İstanbul halkıyla paylaşıyoruz. Bütün tartışmalar açık. Bizim sadece bir meclis toplantımızı 3,5-4 milyon insan aynı anda izliyor. Bu aslında müthiş bir demokrasi adına takip ve satın alma pozisyonu. O bakımdan biz bu iletişimle karşımızda duran ve bizi engellemeye çalışan ya da sağlıklı iletişimimize sıkıntı yaratan tüm medya kanallarını aslında kenara itmiş oluyor halk. Yeter ki siz belediye başkanı olarak halka kendinizi sevdirin, doğruları yaptığınıza inandırın ve onlarla diyalog kurmayı sürekli hale getirin, gerisini çözersiniz.
I'm going to take one more question here, if we can. And can you identify yourself when you ask the question, please?
Yes, my name is Frederica Ingemann from TV2 Denmark. This is a question for Mr. Imamoglu from Istanbul. Speaking of democracy, right now there's a Turkish invasion going on in Syria. Do you support that invasion, Mr.?
We'd hope to keep this particular press conference about the climate issues.
I understand, but this is a very,
I understand.
very important
I think we all
issue.
understand the seriousness of this issue from a geopolitical context, least of all the
Perfect.
mayors. The mayor's staff are here. I'm sure you can follow up with them to ask questions of a non-climate nature.
But they don't have time, so that's why I'm trying to take this opportunity to ask the
understand.
question for
I
the
understand.
mayor. So wouldn't you just leave him the chance of responding, please?
Well, I've been tasked to moderate this on climate, so if you don't mind, let's see if there's questions on climate, because that is the purpose of the conference. Any colleagues have any questions on? Yes.
Hello. It's working? Great. Stine Jacobsen from Reuters. Hello. Just a question on whether you expect any significant outcome from the next round of UN climate talks in Chile in December, and also whether, how much does it actually matter to you what comes out of this?
So why don't we take that across the stage in order and treat this as an opportunity for final remarks as well? So if we start with Warsaw, do we see any possibility of a positive outcome from COP25 in Chile, and anything else you'd like to say, Mr. President?
Well, I'm not very optimistic, but I think that we all wait for the right signals coming from the governments when they actually try to negotiate and push the agenda forwards. But unfortunately, some of the biggest players are not behaving in a responsible way. And even within the European Union, we do have problems, as you know, with especially my conservative government, but also some other governments. And when just a few years back we were seeing some of the most difficult members, such as China, finally taking steps and treating the question seriously, now some of the biggest players, unfortunately, the current U.S. administration as well, doesn't seem to take that question seriously anymore. But anyhow, I still keep my fingers crossed, and whatever happens on the international level, we still have to do our job at home. Because I think that if we keep the pressure up, and that's why we're all here, that actually increases the possibility of bold decisions being taken on an international level. Because I hope that our voice will be heard.
Mayor Walsh?
I think there'll be some positives that come out of it, but I think it'll be incremental. And I also think that cities need to lead. I can bring it right back to what we're talking about over the next couple of days here. The world is watching us here today. The youth are watching us. We can't waste our time arguing with climate deniers. So we need to get to work here. Regardless of what happens a few months from now, the work that's going to be happening is going to be happening in cities all across the world. So we have an opportunity here today and over the next 3 days to make some incredible gains and some incredible advancements. So if some of our world leaders don't want to do the work, we as mayors from the world will do the work.
Yeah, I would agree, Mayor. We cannot negotiate with scientific facts. That's just the reality. And we can't bargain, with the reality. Mother Nature is telling us a story, and she will continue to do that. And I believe with the groundswell happening around the world, within our cities, our young people, the mayors leading on the front lines, I'm pretty optimistic. I really am. So I'm going to leave it there and encourage people to stay engaged, stay involved, and push this issue forward because our lives truly do depend on it.
Mayor?
Dünyanın %80'i artık kentlerde yaşıyor. Bu bir ortalama bir oran ama bazı ülkelerde şehirlerde yaşayan insan oranı çok daha yüksek. Örneğin benim ülkemde de %85'leri bulmak üzere. Dolayısıyla burada özellikle belediye başkanlarından ve yerel yönetimlerden olan beklenti oldukça yüksek. Bu manada bizim ortak çalışma, bir arada çok aksiyon alma ve iş üretme kapasitemizi büyütmeliyiz ve dünya bizden bunu bekliyor. Zaten yerelde belki de aldığımız oyların sebebi de bu. O bakımdan beraber çalışmalı, beraber üretmeli ve dünyaya iklim adına, iklim değişimi adına ve yaşadığımız bu dünyanın daha uzun ve daha güzel bir yaşam çevresine ulaşması adına işbirlikleri yapmalıyız ve ben özellikle yerel yönetimlerle dünyadaki birçok sorunun sadece iklimle ilgili değil, demokratikleşmeden tutun birçok sorunu çözebileceğine inananlardanım. O bakımdan burada olmamızın sebebi bu ve çok faydalı bir işbirliği sürecine bizler de İstanbul adına dahil olup güzel işlere imza atacağımızı düşünüyorum.
Thank you very much, Mayor. If I could just add a comment from a C40 perspective to that question. I think Mayor Walsh is probably right. There'll be incremental progress, but unfortunately what is needed is far more than incremental progress. 3 years ago, these mayors and their colleagues met in Mexico, and they agreed to do what was necessary as defined by science to address climate change. And our study showed that to do, for these cities, the C40 cities, to do their part to keep global heating at no more than 1.5 degrees, they needed to peak emissions by 2020, have emissions more or less by 2030, and be carbon neutral by 2050. And in the 3 years since Mexico, over 100 cities have committed to do exactly that. We call it Deadline 2020. And as announced on Tuesday, over 30 cities have already peaked their emissions. And that's real progress. You know, the COP in Chile is COP 25. The one that was really a success is Paris. And perhaps one thing that national governments could think about is incorporating these cities and these great mayors in their thinking about how to act on climate change, so that the progress these cities are demonstrating the lessons that they've learned in making that progress can be learned by national governments as well, and they can move from talk to action just like the mayors have done. I think that would be the C40 perspective. We of course wish the UN Secretary General well. He's worked very hard and put his personal commitment into addressing climate change, and that's exceptionally important. I do want to thank these 4 mayors, terrific leaders in their own right. I think you've heard from each of them today why they're addressing climate change, and also in their comments and leadership and the actions of their administrations, why they're such terrific leaders and colleagues and friends. I want to thank you so much for being here today and wish you every success in your continuing leadership of your great cities. Thank you very much, and that's the end of the press conference. Thank you.